Hello, everybody, and welcome back to One Hub Racing. We are here for the first ever Inside the Stewards room, and joining alongside me is none other than top dog steward Colin R. Mason. Welcome along, Colin, and thanks for joining me.
Evening all, evening Nick. Thank you, mate. Yes, obviously. So it's not just myself in the stewarding team as well. So we've got Kingan as well. You will see him doing the
Pre-race stewards
pre-race
report.
stewards reports. Axlock as well, and Funky, I believe, is going to be part of the stewarding team as well. So there's many stewards that help out every week to make sure that all the incidents are looked at in a timely manner.
Yeah, so Colin, maybe you can just talk us through. So the race finishes on Sunday. We don't let the steward's office open until Monday morning, just to let the drivers just calm down a little bit, because sometimes, you look at things differently after a good night's sleep. And then the steward's office opens at 9 a.m. Drivers start reporting using the correct ticketing system on Discord. And then what's kind of the steward's process from then on until Thursday when
Yeah, so what we have a number of channels available to us to talk to. We have a voice channel if we ever feel it's easier to talk to the stewards as well. But what the processes we tend to do is each person will look at the incident. I tend to do it first. I will then come with my personal opinion on if there's any blame. And then we look at a stewarding parameters criteria. Now that determines the length of penalty, so time-wise, if there's any time penalty. So you can see there we've got light green incident, green, yellow, amber, and red. So if, for example, someone has caused an incident and the driver who's received contact, for example, has a red front wing and the other driver is deemed at fault, we then look at these stewarding parameters and you can see there that a red incident is 20 to 25 seconds or a 15-place grid penalty. So what we would do then is we would look at each incident in each tier, determine who's at fault, then look at the stewarding parameters. So I put my view in, and then all the other stewards would put their view in. And to be fair, 90% of the time, we all agree straight away. Exactly 100%. But people have different views. As you know, Nick, we even get it in real Formula One. And so we always make sure that we talk about our views, but explain why we've come to that decision. And you'd be very, very surprised how much conversation goes on with some incidents. We've spent hours sometimes debating certain incidences to make sure that we all come to what we believe is the best and right decision.
Yeah, I think a few things to add, Colin. We introduced the stewarding parameters to basically be as consistent as possible. So really, all the stewards are actually determining is if someone's at blame, if a driver is at blame, which party is at blame. Once that's been decided, then the parameter is just kind of does the penalty for us, or the grid penalty or the time penalty. It does it for us. So that way there's no inconsistency of, oh, I think that should be a 10 or I think that should be a 15. Goes by, as you can see on your screen, the stewarding parameters. So it goes on the color of the incident. So we try and be as consistent as possible. And I think the other thing, Colin, is that what we started to do recently is when each steward goes through the incidents and gives their view, they don't look at the other steward's view until they've posted their own. So then we're able to come back and we'll, as you said, 90% of the time, go, yep, they agree on that. He's at blame. Okay, let's go over to parameters. It's a yellow incident. That means a 10 to 15 second penalty. So, Cole, we've been asked a couple times in the chat, are the stewards' decisions more lenient for lap 1 incidents?
It depends on the incident itself. We do tend to be a little bit more lenient with lap 1 incidents simply because of the nature of turn 1, and lap 1. But it all depends on the incident involved. If you're going to be doing, you can remember Bottas a few years ago. Was it Hungary, Nick, I think?
Yep. Bowling
That
ball
bowling pin,
into.
that was such a large misjudgment. We would simply go by the stewarding parameters. But we are, greatly aware that, especially lap 1, turn 1, it is very difficult. You've got cars all around you. It's very difficult to have complete full awareness as opposed to lap 4, 5 when the pack has spread a little bit. So we do try to be a little bit more lenient with lap 1, turn 1 incidents. But like I said, it all depends on what that type of incident is, really.
Yeah, I think what people sometimes refer to is lap 1 incidents if there's lots of drivers involved. And what we found in the past, Colin, is whether it's lap 1 or lap 10 or last lap, if there's an incident where there's 4 or 5 drivers involved, it often gets put down as a racing incident unless one person has predominantly caused it, because there's so many contributing factors between the 4 or 5 drivers who were involved that, if he didn't do that, then if he didn't do that, then if he didn't do that. And sometimes in those sorts of situations, it's difficult for us to penalise one driver particularly.
Yeah, exactly that. And we sometimes it's an incident, and you might think, well, that guy is mainly at fault, but this guy's had an input, this guy's had an input, this guy's had an input. So we look at things like that as well. We don't just go, well, he's 60% to blame, so we're going to give him a penalty. We always try to look at the contributing factors of an incident as well. But to be fair, it's usually quite rare, I would say, that we get any incidents that are very, very difficult to come to a decision. But, if you find that it's split 50-50, for example, I'm talking with the community now. So let's say 50% think, I think he's at fault, and 50% think the other guy's at fault. Then it's probably a racing incident, because you can't determine between your, the community, for example, that anyone's at particular fault. But, I genuinely believe that with the stewarding team that we've got, we've got such high experience there. I'm not trying to. It's going to sound incredibly arrogant, but I'll try and word it nicely. I did used to be what they called a RAC MSA, so a Motorsport Association race director for go-karting, and that experience has really helped me as well doing this stewarding. And Kingan's been racing for so many years. And Kingan is a referee in ice hockey. So he's using that level of experience where he's looking at incidents immediately, straight away, on an ice hockey rink. Axlock, who is, how many seasons has Axlock been racing now, Nick? He's been racing for many years. So we're very fortunate that we've got such a wide range of skills available to us. We've got an official referee in a sport as well. Which is and it's that type of experience that I think helps us come to what I believe is the right decision. Not everyone might agree with the decisions that we make, but the reason why we're doing this is to trying to explain the reasoning and how we come to the decisions that we do.
Yeah, and obviously this is the first show, the first episode, and pre-season didn't have any stewarding. So next week, after round 1, when we're doing this, we'll really be able to look at incidents specifically and dissect them. And I'll be able to challenge Colin. How did you and your team come to that decision? what tipped it over the edge so that you predominantly felt that driver was to blame. And it's to help our drivers and our community, and anyone who might be interested, to get a better understanding on how we take our decisions. I think as well, Cole, you've all the stewards have raced in one hub for quite some time, and we don't necessarily always follow how real Formula One does their stewarding. So generally, our rules are as per the game, and kind of real life, unless on SimGrid, on the rules section, you find where we've tweaked things a little bit. And I'd say the hardest decisions to come to are always the ones where often the game actually gives us the headache rather than two drivers. So I
Yeah,
think
that's
we had
true.
it a couple seasons ago in Brazil, where there was like a disconnection or something. I think it was Arnold
Yeah.
from ERT, and we discussed that for ages. And it didn't matter which way you went, someone was going to be unhappy.
Yeah. Exactly that. But we always, I think there's an element that some, looking at other leagues, you think, oh, I bet they only looked at that for 5 minutes and then called it a day. But this is the whole point of this, is to show that we spend a considerable amount of time looking at each and every incident, and we won't stop talking about it until we're all in agreement of which way we're going to go. And like Nick said, this is one of the reasons why we always put our views in a particular channel without looking at anyone else's. So we're not swayed by anyone else's opinion, so that each individual's opinion is valid and each one is looked at. And then you get a better representation of what people really think and what the stewards really think on each incident.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well that we have mentioned is that any of the stewards who are actively racing in the season, they're not allowed to give their views on obviously their own incidents any further than a normal driver would be within the Discord ticket. And also, they don't give their views on their teammates. So Mark won't be giving his view on Chris this season, and Colin won't be giving his view if I'm in the steward's office. And Colin, you don't even give your views on your dad who races in a different tier, because it's just important to separate, those relationships from the job at hand.
Exactly. I was just about to add that. So, for example, when I'm giving my views, let's say Dad's involved in an incident, I will literally say, Dad, over to you guys. I don't even give them my opinion.
Yeah, it's really important to try and, be like that behind closed doors, so that, we develop a trust with our drivers that, make sure we're trying to be as fair. And, there's always that fine line between encouraging racing and discouraging incidents, because everyone loves seeing wheel-to-wheel battles, but suddenly, if you're having too many incidents come to the steward's office, then the league starts to develop a bad reputation. So it's all about finding that balance on what's fair, what works well and what doesn't. But let's jump over. We got Jess in the background, by the way, so anything you see on screen, she's pulling up for us, and she's also in our ear if we want something particularly. So next week again, when we've got these incidents that have been reported, Jess will be able to replay the POVs, she'll be able to pause them on certain sections, and we'll really be able to look at incidents and give you guys examples of how we came to the decision. But pre-season race, Cole, around Hungary, no stewarding for that one, just gives drivers a chance to have a bit of a warm-up. And there were a few incidents. I know off the start in the P2 race there was an incident, but also I know Marco got speeding in the pit lane. In our tier, in the top tier. So just some incidents which perhaps drivers just need to dust off those cobwebs.
Yeah, and this is the thing, we're not professional drivers, and you've seen it before, where the first race of the year the drivers are rusty. They make a few more mistakes than what they would have done round 5, round 6. So this is one of the reasons why we do put this pre-season race in, is for the opportunity for the drivers to knock a bit of rust off. I mean, I certainly needed it myself. I got to be honest. But obviously we got a lot of new drivers, Nick, as well, so it gives them an understanding of the racing rules that we apply as well.
Yeah, and I think what I always try and stress to all the drivers at the start of the season is don't judge another driver after one race or one incident. You know, they could have been racing for us for years and have the cleanest record there is, but if they make a mistake lap 1, turn 1, round 1 of season 27, it doesn't make them a bad person, it doesn't make them a bad driver. So everyone just needs to just have that open mindset that fortunately we will all make mistakes at times, and just if you feel that unjust about it, report it to the steward's office, and we will make sure to look into it. There's a question from Mikey about if the game gives you a penalty for going wide, corner cutting to avoid an incident or contact with another driver.
Yeah, so Mikey, that has happened before in the past for us. So that, let's say for example, now that you have a car spin in front of you and you've got nowhere to go, so you have to go straight across the chicane, and the game gives you a 10-second time penalty. Now, as long as you don't serve that penalty in the pit lane, so that you end the race with it, you can then open a ticket on the Monday morning. Just make sure that you do, if you're trying to remove any penalties at all that the game issues, just make sure you got your full race director so that we can see it, and footage of you receiving that penalty, and then the stewards will have a good look at it and see, yeah, do you know what, that was completely unfair, we can remove that, and then we'll remove that time from your total race time then, and that's done on the sim grid. And then when the stewards are released on a Thursday, you will see that the stewards have decided, yeah, we're going to remove that penalty, and then when you go on sim grid, you'll see that you have been nudged up the grid then with your penalty removal. Another one from Gaz and Nick. DNF on track on purpose still not allowed. Yes, that's right, Gaza. Please, for anyone listening, do not DNF deliberately on the track. If for whatever reason you do want to retire from the race, please do so in the pit lane. So come into the pit lane and then retire from the session there.
Yeah, just to jump back to the having a penalty removed. Yeah, just make sure. Proverbs asked. My advice would be to put the race director footage, scroll through it at the end of your video, your video for your incident. That way we can see exactly. It's particularly important when you're trying to get a penalty removed through a corner cut, so through several warnings. So if you've had 3 warnings and you've got a 3-second time penalty, but you feel one of them was unfair and you'd like the stewards to look at it, obviously if that one warning gets removed, you drop down to 2, which means your 3-second time penalty will disappear. So the stewards have the power to do that, but they'll want to see that you've had to cut that corner or go wide for a particular reason to avoid an incident or whatever. It can't just be you've made a mistake. You've got to show that you had to take that action in order to get that warning removed. So keep the questions coming, guys. These are great examples. And I don't know if, Jess, this is where I'm going to make your life hard, Jess. If you can scroll back to the Aston Martin down the inside of turn 1, I think it might have been just a couple minutes ago, where he was overtaking down the inside of turn 1. I don't know if you can pull it up for us. It kind of paused almost. Not sure. I'll let you have a look. So yeah, pre-season's out the way. Cobwebs are dusted off a little bit, Cole. Let's talk about some of the unique rules. We can always come back to it, Jess. Let's talk about some of the unique rules for One Hub Racing. These rules we have tutorial videos about to help our drivers understand exactly how they work, but we won't spend too long on them, Cole. Just quickly, fastest lap points.
Yeah, so fastest lap points. So you will get a point for fastest lap if you have the fastest lap time in the top 10, and if you have the fastest lap time in the bottom 10. So, for example, if you finish 13th, you're just outside the top 12 for getting a point, but you get the fastest lap out of the bottom 10 drivers, you'll get a point. So, even if you're last by 20 seconds, it's still worth keep going, because you could get the fastest lap at the end and you will get a point. And that makes a difference, because if Rich had one more point last season, he would have been champion and not J-Luke. So each and every point counts, so utilize that rule.
Alrighty, and mandatory 2 stops. So this is something we've been doing for absolute donkey's years. And, you know, we all think that Formula 1 should introduce it. So mandatory 2 stops, how do they work, Cole? And even if it rains, are they still in play?
Yes, so it's mandatory 2 stop regardless of the weather. So whenever you do a 1 hub race, it's going to be a 2 stop. Now, you can't pit on the last lap. You cannot do that. So your lap, you need to be able, you need the car crossing the line on track, not in the pit lane, to count as a pit stop.
So you've got to complete 1 racing lap on the each set of tyre, basically.
Yeah, exactly that. How you go about doing your 2 stops is perfectly up to you. As long as you do have 2 completed pit stops, and like Nick said, you've done at least 1 lap on each of those tyres, then how you go about it is perfectly up to you. And it adds a great strategy element, and it's been a really big success in 1 hub. It's been in there for many years now, Nick, hasn't it, our 2 stop?
Yes, it definitely has. And you don't have to run each tyre. So some drivers get confused, think you have to run soft, medium, and hard. No, you can run what you want. Obviously, you can't run 3 sets of the same, otherwise the game will disqualify you. So you've got to run 1 different compound, but you need to complete 2 pit stops, and 2 stints can be on the same tyre. Car wear, Colin. So drivers during the season will have to manage their gearbox and their engine, and at some point they will need to take a new one.
Yes, now this is one of my favourite game mechanics that we use. So, as you know, in Formula 1 happens, I think nearly every driver will do it at some point, where they have to take an engine penalty because they've used all their allocation. Max has done it, I think, the last 3 years at Belgium. Don't think he did it this time. So we utilize the same thing. We split it between gearbox and engine. So an engine is 10 places. Gearbox is 5. So you have to make sure that you change your gearbox and your engine at least once every season, but you cannot do them together on the same race. So you can't take a 15-place grid penalty in 1 race, for example. You have to do it in different races.
Which is new for this season.
Yes, that's a new rule for this season. So
I was just going to say, you're about to have on screen last season's allocation, so this will get posted every week, and you'll be able to see how many laps left in your gearbox in the race. And obviously, when you're doing your practice and stuff, you'll know that if a race is 35 laps around Canada and you've only got 30 laps left, you need to take your gearbox, whatever it might be. Otherwise, if you run out of laps on your engine or your gearbox, you will DNF. So just like in real life, if it blows, you're out of the race. So you might win the race, but if you run out of laps on your engine, it has blown up before you've crossed the line, relatively speaking. So you can see on the screen now exactly how it works.
Yeah, so you get this every week, so you can see it, and you can try and judge. You can also then use that as a gauge to when you want to take your penalty as well. So how these are applied. So as you know, we do lobby restarts. So we'll do a qualifying session. We then go back to the main lobby. So we retire from the race, and then the grid is reset and we go away. So it's at that point that we'll have a look to see, has anyone decided they're going to take an engine penalty? So let's say, for example, Gaza. So if Gaza says, right, I'm going to take an engine penalty here. So if he qualifies second, he'll actually start 12th, obviously. So he'll start that race in 12th position, and then.
And if you DNF, so say you DNF on lap 20 of Silverstone, you will get ×2 engine wear for that race. So you won't get 20 laps used on your engine. You'd actually get 40. So if you DNF, or laps that you've completed, so it's laps that you've completed in the race, not quali,
Yeah.
you will have that applied to your remaining for your engine and your gearbox. So exciting part of the season, something that strategically a lot of drivers look at. Which race am I going to take it? Which race is easy for overtaking? Which race is likely to have more safety cars? Bloody bloody blah. So there's lots to think about, which is why we love it. And speaking of something else we love, Colin, the adaptive weather system, which was introduced a few seasons ago and will now be announced every Sunday during the pre-race show, which will run at 12 p.m.
Yes. Now, you heard me say that the engine wear was one of my favourite mechanics that we use. Well, the weather one is my favourite one. Now, the funny thing was, I'm going to name drop him now. It was Nick's idea. And when I first read it, I went, come on, Nick, that's daft. And then we tried it, and I'm like, this is complete genius. I absolutely love it. So, what happens is we have a set of weather scenarios, both for the qualifying and for the race. So, for example, one of the scenarios will be starts off light rain in quali and then ends dry. We load that into the custom weather within the lobby settings. That scenario then is ticked off and won't be used again. And it's all completely random. And you'll see on stream, I think we're going to use a wheel, and it's completely random. So you will know when the weather is released. So that will be, I think our pre-race show is at 12 o'clock, Nick, I think?
Correct, every Sunday.
So every Sunday at 12 o'clock, there'll be a pre-race show. And it'll be at that point that we release our weather, and then you'll be able to know. But bear in mind, the weather is on approximate. So you can't just look at P3's race and go, oh, look, rain comes at lap 12, happy days. That's all I need to know. Because it might change. Not only that, we've got safety cars which could change the time of when the weather comes. But if you know in the race, for example, that it's cloudy, rain, you know there's a really good chance that it's going to rain at the end. And then you can adjust your strategy and your tyres and your setup accordingly then. And honestly, it's an absolutely brilliant mechanic. What it stops, Nick, I think this is one of the reasons why you brought it in, is that full wet races are boring. There's
Correct.
no DRS at any point. It's full rain, and it's usually just a train of cars going around waiting for somebody to spin. Not very entertaining. And of course, then you've also got the risk that you could be really, really unlucky and have that 6 races in a row. This stops that. And like I said at the start, I think it's a genius mechanic, and I think it's one of, if not our best feature.
Well, you can see the full game settings on SimGrid under the rules section, including what assists we allow you to run in One Hub Racing. That applies to all tiers that race. You can see the championship points on offer, including the fastest lap points. And then you can scroll further down to our terms and conditions, which you'll see a section on general, a section on attendance, a section on general rules, a section on car wheel rules, a section on racing, section on sponsorship, age, stewarding, entry fee, disconnection, prizes, and then events. So we're going to dive into a particular rule in the racing section, Cole, which is when drivers are overtaking and defending. So it's under the racing rules, point 3, and I think Jess is going to pop up on our screen, overtaking on the inside to start with. And Cole, we are just going to run through it. So if a driver is overtaking on the inside column, driver must be 50% alongside at the point the defending driver turns into the corner at the natural racing line.
Yes, exactly that. So you can see there, if you look at the top image, the driver is not 50% alongside at the point that driver in the lead is going to turn into the corner. So that means that if the driver simply turns in the corner, you're going to hit his rear tyre, and you're both going to be ending up off the track.
And
The
you'll be at
bottom
fault,
image,
the overtaking driver.
yes. So the overtaken driver then is at fault. You can see the bottom image, and that driver now is 50% alongside that car, which means that he is obligated for space. So if the defending driver now, the driver who's slightly ahead, ignores that driver and turns in, he will be deemed at fault. Now,
So this is I was just going to say,
mate, go on.
this is probably the most common incident that we have in the steward's office. Hence why we've created these, what we believe to be really simple and understand. They're not designed to discourage overtaking. What they've done is to make a driver think before he goes for the move. So we can get less incidents in the steward's office. And generally, drivers will be happy because the racing, is cleaner.
Yeah, and then it's more fun when you have drivers who understand the racing rules better, because then there's less incidents. You get a lot of side-by-side action. You go fighting throughout many corners. We know this is a contentious issue in real Formula One. In my opinion, real Formula One are not clear enough on what their standards are regarding when somebody can overtake and when they can't. This is why we decided with this, you can see with this image, we try to make it as clear as possible, just to make sure that it's clear for each driver what the requirement is of when you've got a car alongside of you. And as long as that driver leaves the car's width on the inside, he might try to hang around the outside. But as long as there's racing room left for that driver on the inside in that bottom image, and he just doesn't swing across. So Mikey's asked a question, Nick, sorry. What if the inside driver swings the defender to the outside? Surely that just makes you concede the place 9 out of 10 times. So if the inside driver... I'm just trying to understand what he's saying a sec. Swings the defender to the outside. Yeah.
The next image that Jess is going to pull up for us, which technically will apply for overtaking on the outside. So the defending driver goes to the inside, and the overtaking driver now wants to come to the outside. So we can see from the image, Colin, that on the top one, the overtaking driver, who is on the outside, isn't fully alongside at the point of natural turn-in, whereas the bottom image we can see that the outside driver is fully alongside at the point of turning, and therefore the inside driver must give the outside driver a car's width all the way through the corner.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So Mike is saying, let's use Copse Corner, Hamilton, Verstappen as an example. So under our rules, Lewis wouldn't have been 50% alongside, so should have
at the point of
turn-in, and so Lewis should have backed out of that particular move. That would be what our rules determine that incident to be then. I'm just trying to think of another racing example that we might use. But yeah, so this is what... So a lot of people have asked me over the last couple of weeks, why have we got these rules? And it's simply to improve the racing. Because having drivers just diving down the inside, hitting people out the way, pushing people onto the grass on the exit is not fun. It's not enjoyable to watch as from a spectator point of view. And it spoils the races for everyone involved because it causes more safety cars, causes damage to other cars as well. But it's the same for everyone. So, and I genuinely believe, and I know I'm biased here, but I think if Formula One took a leaf out of these rules, it would be much better.
Alrighty, so I think Jess has found that move that I was talking about earlier on, where Axlock was making a move into turn one around Hungary pre-season race. So I think she's going to pull it up here now. So we see Coley's in front. Axlock is the overtaking driver. He goes to the inside, and although he was about, I don't know if we can rewind just slightly there, so we can look at the point of turning. And hopefully Jess can, here she goes, oh magic. So it's quite a late turn into this apex because you're focusing on the exit. So the natural turn in is quite late, which means Axlock was able to sling it down the inside. At all times on the exit, Axlock gave a car's width to Coley, and at all times during the apex, Coley gave a car's width to Axlock. So that's exactly the type of racing we want to see. The move wasn't successful on that occasion. But had Axlock been perhaps slightly further alongside, then he would have maybe had a better exit and been able to get the move done.
Yes.
So great example there, Cole.
This is a brilliant example of how to attempt a maneuver and how to defend one as well. So all credit to Coley and Axlock. That is a perfect example of how to. Oh, that's not a good example.
How to spin as well.
Avoided the wall though. But that is a perfect example of how we like to see drivers go racing. And it really does. You know, we've had some incredible battles over the years. You know, and this is why we've had some great racing, because we have clear rules. There's no ambiguity.
Alrighty, well, let's jump over to some other rules. As I say, you can read the full rules in Grid, and I would encourage you to scroll through them. You know, it talks about things like you must provide footage if requested by the stewards. If you don't, you will receive a penalty. It talks about red flags. It talks about all sorts of things, including attendance, how many races you attend. These are all designed to give you guys, the drivers, viewers, the best experience possible during a season. It talks about full detail about the car wheel rule. Overtaking gives some other examples, like if you gain a position outside of the white lines. Just loads of different things. If an incident is your fault, so say Mark had gone down the inside and tapped Coley, and Coley had gone slightly wide on the exit because of the tap. As long as Mark slows down and safely allows Coley to repass, then there would be no penalty. The stewards would just throw it straight out the steward's office. So we do encourage some fair play and also doing the right thing, and then the stewards will look at that kindly and go, carry on, boys.
Yeah, exactly that. Because, you know, we're not professional racers. We don't get paid £1 million a second to do this. So we know that mistakes are going to happen, you know? And you could get the opportunity, like Nick explained there, where you make a mistake, but you've got an opportunity to go, oh, do you know what? If I can let him go here. And that's the type of sportsmanship that we like to see as well. And like Nick said, you know, we wouldn't give a penalty for that because, you know, you've nudged him wide, but you've realised your error, and you've let them repass you, as we're seeing a perfect way to go racing.
Yeah.
With Casper. So Casper's been with us for many seasons, and that is another great example. And what you'll notice about these incidents or these overtakes, it requires both drivers to have a good understanding and application of the rules. And that's the important thing here. If both drivers, you know, do their best to follow the rules, the racing rules that we have, this is the type of racing you get out of it, you know?
Alrighty, well, let's jump over. We got a few other rules that we just wanted to highlight quickly. We are running over slightly. Apologies for that, but it is the first week, and you know, there's lots that we want to talk about. So weaving on the straight, Jess, hopefully you can pull up that image for us now. And this basically says how you can and can't drive down the straight. So Colin, pretty clear. The top example is they're weaving too much prior to the braking zone to try and break the toe, whereas the bottom image shows that yes, they've gone to one side of the track and then the other, but they've only done it once. They've returned to their natural racing line, with the driver behind them, always behind them the entire time. They haven't reached 50% alongside their car, so they're perfectly entitled to.
Yeah, exactly that. You can see at the top that the driver's gone from outside to inside to outside, and he's come back again then onto the inside. That is considered weaving, and if reported to the stewards, then that would be given a penalty. You can see at the bottom, when on a straight, the defending driver is allowed to make one defensive move and then is allowed to move back to the racing line as long as it's done safely. So in other words, as long as the driver is not got any of his car alongside of you. And that it must be done before the braking zone as well.
Okay, moving over to racing rules under the safety car. So Jess will pull this one up for us, Cole, and perhaps you just want to quickly explain how to and to not behave and drive behind a safety car.
Yes, so under the safety car, and this includes restart, when you're about to restart under a safety car as well. You can see the top image and you've got drivers overlapping each other. So that is not allowed. So the way that we do the safety car, you have to be fully behind the driver ahead. So you can't be alongside of them. You've got to be behind them. And then the driver must keep the entire car behind. And the car head drivers who overtake under safety conditions can be reported to the stewards. So make sure that you don't overtake anyone under the safety car. And just a little bit of driving advice, because I do see it a lot. When you're under the safety car, and let's say you're on turns 2 and 3, there's no need to be bumper to bumper, because all that's going to happen is if the guy brakes in front of you, you're not expecting it, and you're going to lose your front wing. So try and leave a little bit of a gap. Or fair enough, when you're about to restart, then yeah, you can close up. But for the rest of the time, leave a good car and a half width, and that should stop any incidents under the safety car before we're restarting. And yes, you can weave to warm your tires as well if you feel that that's beneficial for you as well.
So we can see on screen Ben Mills behind the safety car, and you can see how the drivers in the P1 tier around Hungary in pre-season were nicely spaced out so that they could warm their tyres without potentially causing an incident with each other. So let's jump on to readying up. So this is quite straightforward, but we just wanted to bring to everyone's attention because often new drivers get caught out by this rule. When you are sitting on the grid, this is not when you're in the lobby before you go into a session. This is when you're sitting on the grid, choosing your strategy, loading your setup, because of course there will be a lobby restart, choosing your fuel, all those things. You are not allowed to ready up. Tier coordinator will message in the tier chat when we will be readying up and we are good to go. That is the point that you are okay to do so. So our advice, just sit there, do your strategy, do your fuel, sit there and just wait for that timer to go down. We like to allow drivers a chance to have a quick drink, get their setup loaded, get their strategy correct, last minute thoughts before we go racing. And of course, can't run formation lap at the moment due to a game glitch, so it's even more important because the drivers will be straight into the action when that setting goes and the timer counts down. Jess, next one over to...
Sorry, Nick, can I just jump in?
Yes, of course you can.
So just to let everyone know, if you do ready up, and as you can see on the screen there, the tier coordinator and the host can see who has readied up, that driver will get a 3-point championship deduction from their total for the first offence. If you do it again, you'll get 5. So the incentive here for not readying up is don't lose points. So just easy answer: do not ready up at any point. Let the timer just tick down, like Nick said.
Alrighty, qualifying hot laps. So some tracks this is more difficult than others. But either way, it doesn't track, Colin. It's really important, particularly on this game where the dirty air has become a lot more prominent. We need to make sure we're getting out of the way of drivers who are on their hot lap.
Yes, exactly that. We see this happen a lot in Formula One, where drivers hold up other cars, and they always use the same excuse: team never told me. Easy answer: don't wander on the racing line. So if you are on your in lap, be very aware. If you've got the map up, have a look at the map, keep checking your mirrors, and just make sure that you're off that racing line, and then you're not likely to hold anyone up. Like Nick said, the dirty air on this game is quite considerable, so just please be mindful of drivers behind you. If you do get held up on a qualifying lap, you can report it to the stewards as long as you've got your footage.
Yes, alrighty. So next we're going to jump over to a new rule for this season, and this is our last one that we'll be highlighting, which is the DRS chicken. So Colin, we've seen this before. We don't like it. It's not a good look on stream. It's not in the interest of sportsmanlike conduct. And so we've introduced a specific rule for this season where no DRS chicken, as it's known, is allowed.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason why we brought this in is that there was an incident last season in P1, and a driver decided to be a bit smart and lift off the throttle on a straight to get DRS from the driver in front, and it caused absolute havoc. The driver behind nearly slammed into the back of the car ahead because he's not expecting that driver to lift on a flat out straight. So this is why we've removed this. So do not do any DRS chicken. So you're not allowed to lift off the throttle or any sudden deceleration to allow the attacking driver past them before reaching the DRS detection point. Drivers who do this can be reported to the stewards. So no DRS chicken.
Alrighty, and then finally we're going to jump over to what is round one, Silverstone. So the stewards will be releasing their pre-race stewards report late on Saturday, early Sunday morning, where they will point out things that they want you to understand, to know about before you head into the race later on Sunday afternoon, evening. Cole, I've got the track map up in front of me. There's a couple DRS zones on here, so detection points. You'll be able to see, where they are. But Cole, let's talk about the track itself. Coming into the pits, it's changed for this year's game.
Yeah, so the pit entry line is a lot later than it has been normally. So you're going to be approaching it a lot quicker. So just be aware, everyone. Do a bit of practice of going in the pit lane, because you're going to be approaching that. And it's a 37 mile an hour pit lane as well. So you do need to bring the speed down quite considerably. And I don't know whether some of you are aware, but Jarno Opmeer on the last lap of the race in PSGL decided to go in the pit lane in order to win the race. That will be outlawed by OneHub, and that will be in the stewards briefing. A lot of opinions on it. I'll give my one because just for free. I wouldn't want to win a race like that. That's just me. But just to let you know, that is not going to be allowed in OneHub on Sunday.
Yeah, other things to just keep an eye on is when you head into COPs, obviously if you're following closely to another car, there is a chance you're going to be drifting out wide. That would not be an excuse to remove a corner cut warning or a track extension warning just because you were in the dirty air and you lost a bit of downforce. So you need to drive with that in mind. You can see just before Luffield into Brooklands there, That's a great overtaking opportunity because different lines can be taken all the way through 6 and 7. If you can follow the car ahead closely enough through Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, just be careful on your qualifying laps, Colin, on the exit of Chapel. That curb there, even if you don't go over it, it's going to invalidate your lap time.
Yeah, exactly that. There's quite a few easy places to invalidate your lap. That's obviously one of them. Cops Corner is also another one where you can run wide. It's one of my favourite tracks to drive, I got to be honest. Plenty of overtaking opportunities, with multiple DRS zones. Into Stowe is a very popular place to overtake as well, Nick.
You just saw there on we're watching Mason's from last season. So through Chapel there, John's lap time would have been on this game. It would have been invalidated. So just be really careful through that because it is incorrect. You're not actually 4 wheels off, so you shouldn't be invalidated. But it was done so. And whilst we're talking about Silverstone, we also should quickly mention, Colin, that your dad last season won the race, and we can see he's leading in qualifying on this footage that's on the screen right now. And he masterclassed. He wasn't the quickest. He masterclassed his ERS usage throughout the race in order to keep that first place and eventually win his Grand Prix.
Yes, obviously I'm biased, but I remember I was actually obviously watching the One Hub stream, and then a couple of days later I watched his on board from his view. And this is the thing. I'm in P1, Dad's in P3. I learnt so much watching him utilize his ERS, where he's using it. More importantly, where he wasn't using it. And I think it's going to be even more important on this game. Your ERS strategy is going to be so important because it helped Dad. I mean, even with DRS, he was timing his ERS usage so well. Poor old Proverb just could not get past him. Yeah, that's a race I will never forget, I got to be honest.
And that's exactly what One Hub's all about, creating those moments that kind of stick out in history for drivers themselves, for us as admins, commentators, viewers, that we all go on to remember. So our first Inside the Stewards Room episode is over. We have run through everything we wanted to. It did go on a bit longer. We are going to try and keep it to half an hour, but we just wanted to read through some of the unique rules and things like that. But we still would encourage drivers, even if you stayed through us this whole stream, to just go on SimGrid and just make sure that you are reading all of those rules. And if you've got any questions, then do ask your tier coordinators. They'll be happy to help. Remember, if you can't attend a race, hopefully Jess will be able to pull it up for us, then you must sign out on SimGrid. You have to sign out, otherwise it will count as an unauthorized absence, and then you'll be getting a message from one of the admins. Colin, I just want to quickly thank our sponsors for the first time this season for a stream with the full lineup. Next Level Racing, of course, sponsors the league by providing amazing prizes that we've been giving out for over 10 seasons. Pure Sim Gear, you got the chance to win Sim Racing socks or Sim Racing gloves. Sim Racing setups, which are new for Cole. Yourself and I have both bought them, and we are experimenting with. They have quali setups, race setups, strategy advice, ERS usage advice, wet setups, low downforce setups, you name it, they've got it for every single track. So if you want to get yourself a head start, then head over to them and use the code to get 5% discount. Vespertine, who support our apparel, so all of our merchandise is done through them, which obviously we're providing in prizes this season as well. And then SimGrid, we run all of our championships through SimGrid. So big shout out to them for their amazing community of drivers, who some of you have found us from on their website. Colin, final thoughts, final advice for your season 27 drivers?
My only advice, make sure you have fun. That's why we do it. Enjoy it. Like I said in the chat there, if any of you guys have any questions for me regarding any steward, please DM me at any time, and I'll do my best to answer them as best I can. And
yes,
more
we are
importantly,
going to do
good luck for Sunday.
Yes, very good luck. We hope everyone gets the result they want. Unfortunately, not everyone is going to get the result they want, but there's 12 races this season, so plenty of opportunity for everyone to get some results. So remember, even if you don't finish in the top 3, you'll have your chance to win the Going Gets Tough award, which shows that as a league we don't just care about the quick drivers, the ones finishing at the top. We care about drivers all the way down the field. For us, it's about participation, getting involved with the community, and having fun. As Colin said, we are doing a practice session after this for anyone who would like to join. But thank you very much for watching. Jess, thank you in the background for all of your amazing work, bringing us what we want on screen when we want it. And Colin, of course, thank you for your contribution to stewarding and for joining me
Pleasure.
for this opening inside the stewards room. Remember, next week we'll be dissecting incidents that have been reported to the stewards, so it might be your POV we might be using on stream, and we'll be explaining exactly why we took the decision that we did. Thanks everyone. This was Inside the Stewards Room with Nick and Colin. We will see you next week for another episode. Good luck on Sunday.